Oh, you said we were going to a place Walt Disney built.
No, Peter, I said supported.
Disney has invested nearly $250 million in an attempt to rebrand Snow White, but the result? Family Guy has turned the entire project into a punchline. They didn't just target the film, they took aim at the company, the casting choices, and the entire era of Disney's so-called woke reboots. The most shocking part? They didn't even need to mention Rachel Zegler by name. The message was loud, brutal, and unmistakable. This wasn't merely a cheap joke, it was a full-on assault. And it struck a chord because audiences are already fatigued. Fatigued by forced reinventions, fatigued by moral lectures disguised as entertainment. Right now, Rachel Zegler is becoming the face of this backlash. In one memorable scene, Peter Griffin strolls through Disneyland looking bewildered. But the real punchline lies in the background. A roller coaster labeled Disney Stock plunges downwards. That's not subtle. It's Family Guy's way of saying that Disney's empire is crumbling, and their obsession with woke branding is to blame. Things escalate from there. Peter watches TV and sees a character exclaiming, "Wow, that girl is hot." His friend quickly corrects him, saying, "That's a boy." This happens repeatedly until Peter finally loses it, shouting, "What is everything?" It's chaotic, it's funny, and it's a direct jab at the identity confusion that currently dominates Hollywood storytelling.
Oh, that girl's hot.
That's a guy.
That other guy's handsome.
That's a girl.
That cat is cute.
That's a dog.
What is everything?
The line, "What is everything?" has become a meme, encapsulating how many viewers feel about the constant changes and redefinitions in media. Family Guy took that sentiment and turned it into a punchline with surgical precision. They didn't hold back because they didn't have to. That's the luxury of a show that has always embraced controversy. But for Disney, this was more than just a roast. It was a wake-up call. And just when you think that's the end of it, here comes the twist.
Tell me exactly what it is you're afraid of.
I keep having the same dream. Everywhere I look, people are being replaced.
Okay, and who do you think is going to have you replaced?
Them, the puppet masters. The last time I had the dream, I was walking down the school hallway. And then I see Butters, and he's like, "Hey, Eric, you want to see what my mom packed me for lunch?" And that's when I start to notice that something's wrong. Everyone I cared about has been systematically replaced.
Family Guy wasn't the first animated show to take shots at Disney. In fact, South Park beat them to it, and they didn't just poke fun at Snow White. They dismantled the entire machine behind it. Kathleen Kennedy, Disney's boardroom decisions, the recycled casting formulas, and the infamous put a chick in it and make her gay playbook, all of it was on the chopping block. And Rachel Zegler, she was already in the crosshairs. If Family Guy fired shots, South Park dropped a nuclear bomb.
Some of us think we're really great people, but in the real world we're not. We're terrible people. You run your life in a very selfish way, and you think you're doing good when you're actually not. And at the same time, it's how do democracies turn back into dictatorships? It's happened through history forever and ever.
While Snow White continues to struggle with the backlash, Disney is already eyeing its next billion-dollar venture, a live-action remake of Tangled, with Rachel Zegler reportedly attached to the project. This news is not being well received online. Tangled is set to become Disney's most expensive remake ever, with costs exceeding $500 million when marketing is included. After losing nearly $200 million on Snow White, panic is setting in behind the scenes. Even Disney fans are questioning why the studio would take such a risk again, especially with someone who has already drawn the ire of the internet.
Rachel Zegler is not having her year where her Snow White movie is going to lose $200 million for Disney, but doing so, she also screwed over Tangled in the process. When Rachel Zegler was cast as Snow White, she joined one of Disney's biggest franchises, which was Disney Princess, where they've done $45 billion in merchandise sales just in the last 25 years. With the goal of trying to keep that brand fresh, they've tried to do live-action reboots of the Princess movies, and they have had success so far, with Cinderella making over $500 million on a budget of $90 million, and then Beauty and the Beast making $1.3 billion. But the last two attempts for Disney just haven't worked, where Halle Bailey's Little Mermaid lost $25 million for Disney, and Rachel Zegler's Snow White is way worse and it could lose up to $200 million. Now, because of those two failures, Disney's pausing their other attempts at making live-action reboots, including the live-action Tangled movie. Which Tangled was actually the most expensive animated movie of all time, costing $260 million, and it only made $592 million, which actually means it lost money factoring marketing and ticket splits. Still, Disney saw potential in Tangled having more success as a live-action movie, but now due to the failure of the Rachel Zegler films, they're no longer going to be pursuing that or other projects. So hey, she failed so bad she did something good getting rid of the reboots and without.
The backlash against Tangled is happening even before filming begins, not because Rachel Zegler lacks talent, but because audiences feel they are being sold a brand rather than a story. When you throw $500 million behind that brand, the expectation is not just for a good movie, but for something that feels bulletproof, something people genuinely want to support. Right now, that's not the energy surrounding this project. Speaking of bad energy, let's talk about the moment Rachel walked into an empty theater, posted a TikTok, and inadvertently reminded everyone just how poorly Snow White performed. Rachel Zegler entering an empty movie theater wouldn't typically make headlines, but this was her own film's promotional moment. The seats? Almost entirely vacant. The backlash didn't stop there. It took a political turn. Rachel Zegler was among several Hollywood figures who publicly supported Palestine during the ongoing Israel-Gaza conflict, even signing a letter calling for a ceasefire. While this alone might not have caused chaos, her co-star Gal Gadot is famously pro-Israel. Suddenly, a fictional fairy tale movie became a political battleground. The tension escalated when Lebanon officially banned the film, not because of Rachel, but due to Gal Gadot's involvement. Distributors noted that Gadot has long been on a boycott list in Lebanon, meaning any film she stars in gets blocked from release.
Honestly, I'm embarrassed of this because I chose a filter that made me look pink as hell. But you thought you did something. You thought you did something by pointing out that I, like every other person on planet Earth, use filters on my photos. But you know what you really got? Embarrassed. Let me tell you why this is embarrassing. It's because in this photo, I'm still an olive-toned queen. You don't have to give me any more racial identity confusion than I already have. Let me tell you something. Soy una latina orgullosa y tengo muchos privilegios porque tengo piel clara. But I will never try to bait people by pretending that I look different than I do. Shouldn't even have to explain myself, but go pick on someone else who's actually doing harm by race fishing.
The final blow? The box office numbers. Snow White had a budget between $240 to $270 million, but barely managed to gross $184 million globally. Even Disney insiders admitted it underperformed. Behind closed doors, producer Mark Platt's son, Jonah Platt, didn't hold back, stating that Rachel's public comments exacerbated the situation. Her interviews, social media presence, and overall public persona contributed to the film's downfall. Now the question isn't whether Snow White failed. That's already established. The real question is what Disney will do next. As animated shows continue to roast them, fans are walking away, and their most expensive remake yet hasn't even begun production.
Thursday night, the 23-year-old actress posted a new message. Hi everyone, I would like to sincerely apologize for the election post I shared on my Instagram last week. I let my emotions get the best of me. Hatred and anger have caused us to move further and further away from peace and understanding, and I am sorry I contributed to the negative discourse.
Even Disney's staunchest defenders are starting to look the other way. But the roasts? They're still coming. One of the darkest jabs might have flown under the radar, straight from Family Guy again. In the infamous Quagmire's Dad episode, the show introduced a trans character named Ida. While the intent might have been progressive, the execution was controversial. The most notorious moment? Brian the dog vomiting repeatedly after discovering he'd slept with Ida. The scene sparked outrage online, yet Family Guy doubled down. They've never claimed to be fair, but they have always been fearless. If they're already going hard on Disney's casting, identity politics, and box office failures, there's no reason to think they'll stop. This brings us to the one cartoon empire that hasn't yet spoken out but might be next: The Simpsons.
Brian. Ida. 2 more, please. So I finally tell them, hey, I came here to be at the seminar, not run it.
For over 30 years, The Simpsons have poked fun at politics, media, and pop culture. Recently, they've edged closer to the Disney flame. Remember, Disney owns them now, but that hasn't stopped The Simpsons from making sly jabs at their parent company. They've already roasted Marvel fatigue, Star Wars overload, and endless remakes. It's only a matter of time before Snow White lands in their sights. Here's why that could be problematic. The Simpsons still holds significant cultural credibility. If they release an episode mocking the Tangled remake, Rachel Zegler, or Disney's fixation on rewriting its past, it will resonate deeply, not because it's edgy, but because it reflects a prevailing truth. The moment The Simpsons joins the fray, it will signal something far more concerning: that Disney has lost its audience entirely. When even its own properties begin to turn against it, the narrative shifts from haters to a crisis of legitimacy. This situation has never been solely about Rachel Zegler, one poorly received film, or the critics online. It's about trust. Disney once represented timeless storytelling, characters that audiences could believe in, and movies that provided an escape. Now, they seem to be selling reboots wrapped in moral lectures, and even their most devoted fans are starting to disengage. The question isn't whether another roast is on the horizon, it's who will deliver the next blow. Family Guy has already taken its shots. South Park has obliterated the narrative, and The Simpsons are circling. If things don't change soon, the next roast won't just be humorous, it could serve as the final verdict on Disney's current trajectory.